I want to go back a little bit to the MicroStrategy
Yes.
conversation and maybe dissect a little bit about what Jack Dorsey was talking about. My hero, his poster is hanging up in one of my rooms somewhere out there in the world. But share with us a little bit about just sort of what he said, what your takeaways were from his conversation, and maybe what you're keeping an eye on out of block.
Yeah. So I just thought that it was incredible how he describes the resiliency of the technology and really just diving into some of the technical aspects of why he believes in Bitcoin as this really powerful, transparent network. Just kind of going back to the simple points of like, this is open source, just transparent protocol. It's not trying to be anything that it's not. And great to hear is not only does he have the kind of conviction that Michael Saylor does, where, he's really making his corporation all about this and trying to spread the message and spread awareness about the technology, but also just the idea of supporting the infrastructure. So like the Lightning Network, making sure that people understand, what innovation is happening there, supporting the core developers, knowing that, yes, there are some challenges to the settlement layer, but ultimately there are these building blocks on top of it, these secondary layers that will be incredibly empowering to make this into potentially more of a transactional technology network as opposed to just a store of value. And obviously there are some questions there, right? Because Michael Saylor has always been the advocate saying, no, Bitcoin is digital property. It's a store of value. It's not a currency. But at the same time, Lightning and what Jack is essentially building and encouraging, like that empowers it to be a currency. And so I think that there are going to be some interesting developments there. And obviously we know that he's now venturing into mining, which I think is really cool. I just think that there's so much, innovation, competition, genuinely capitalistic values that are in this whole ecosystem that Jack sort of touches on. And it's really, really exciting. So I think people like him will usher in more CEOs, more institutions to venture onto the Bitcoin wave.
Yeah, I mean, when you see thought leaders like that just very clearly articulate sort of what they see, why they see it, and where they see things going, it's hard to ignore those type of conversations. I want to ask you, because you touched on the fact that Saylor is sort of the side of store of value. Jack is very much open to beyond store. Like, I'm sure that he believes in the store of value, but he looks at it so much more beyond that as well. Where do you sort of stand in this discussion? Are you a purist of let's go store of value, then peer-to-peer transaction, and then who knows where this goes? Or do you sort of go ahead?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And I think that my answer will change depending on where we're at with the state of like I think the markets and economy at large, our global economy, because right now, as Americans, yes, we have our US dollar, which is relatively stable in the short term, but zoom out and it's collapsing over time. So you have a relatively stable asset that's depreciating over time. Bitcoin is an extremely volatile asset in the short term, but it's appreciating over time. So in my mind, it's like, why would I want to spend something that I truly believe will go up in value, right? And not to say that it's going to be to the extent of like the pizza situation where, the money you spend today, it's looking back at like, 10,000 Bitcoins for a pizza or whatever. But I do see it as like, why I want to save this, because I truly believe that the value is going to be so much greater in the future. That being said, I think it's an incredibly powerful tool for transactions and as a medium of exchange in other countries, especially countries where they need to subvert oppressive governments or they have wildly higher inflation than we do here. So I'm incredibly inspired when I go to places like I went to the Oslo Freedom Forum conference last year with Alex Gladstein and his organization, and just hearing from people in different countries, from Afghanistan to North Korea to places in Africa and Latin America, where they're using it in real time because they need it. They avoid remittance payments, when they're sending money between family members. And it's an incredibly powerful transactional tool as a currency. But I think that this is where things have to evolve a little bit more, because I've always felt this way. If we position Bitcoin as a threat to the US dollar, to the US banking system, to the central bank, to the Fed, I think we're going to create more hurdles for ourselves. We're not going to be doing ourselves any favors, because immediately I think it's going to turn politicians off, and it's going to turn the people who don't understand Bitcoin off as this sort of like destabilizer in the system, right? We had Hillary Clinton saying this destabilizes the world. Well, no, you guys destabilize the world with your dumb policies over the last, 10 years, 20 years. So Bitcoin fixes this, but not a lot of people understand how and why. So I think that it's kind of like that Friedrich Hayek saying that, in the Bitcoin standard, Saifedean references this quote of like, we can never take the power of money out of their hands unless we do it in a very sneaky way, where at the point it's like, powerful enough and it's grown enough, they can no longer do anything about it. And that's the way I've personally always viewed Bitcoin. It's growing organically on its own. It's like sprouting its seeds little by little, and pretty soon it's going to be a forest. So if you want to spend it and you're in the US, cool. But like, I personally want it to be my property, my digital real estate, my store of value. And for the folks that are in El Salvador or in like places like Lebanon or Turkey where inflation is skyrocketing, yeah, use it as a medium of exchange. Go for it. But I think this it'll change, and someday unit of account. But like, we're not there yet.